Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to you all for this today's webinar on food adulteration and detection techniques. We are really glad to have such a diverse group joining this webinar, and we really appreciate you taking time to attend this webinar. I am Saurabh Kurtarkar, and I'm managing the training operations for Quality Central Asia. Ma'am, you can just move to the next slide. So, I'm Saurabh Kurtarkar, and I'm managing the training operations for Quality Austria Central Asia. QACA has completed a decade in delivering quality services with a workforce of around 2,500 employees, 2,100 and approx 2,100 clients, and with offices with across 26 offices across India. QACA is a leading service provider in certification, inspection, testing, training, cybersecurity, and sustainability. Yeah. So with 26 offices across India, Quality Austria is a leading service provider in certification, inspection, testing, training, cybersecurity, and sustainability. We have accreditations for 17020, QCI, NABCB, and IRCA. We have our own test labs. We have own testing labs for material testing, full testing, and have a cyber lab as well. Yeah, we are providing services in these sectors, which include telecom, automotive, built environment, coal, water, locomotive, roads and bridges, and oil and gas. Next slide, ma'am, please. Yeah, and these are the few clients with whom we are associated. These are the few key clients with whom we are associated, and we serve them. So to name few includes Reliance, Mahindra, Alstom, QCI, Bajaj Energy, Indian Oil, etc. Ma'am, next slide, please. This is our training calendar for the month of November. So we publish it every month, and we have that calendar scheduled on our website for next year as well. So for trainings, we do trainings in automotive, food, information technology, sustainability, healthcare, pharma, and energy sectors. We offer both open house and in-house trainings. So in case you have any requirements or any thing you want to enroll to our courses, you can just revert back to us, or you can contact us. Our team will be assisting you further with the training requirements. So before we proceed, I will just like to a few notes, few quick notes for all the participants. This webinar will run approximately for 2 hours, including the time for question and answers. If you have any questions during the session, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. And there is a separate tab for Q&A. You can post your questions there, and we will address them at the end of the session. Currently, you won't be able to unmute yourselves. We will allow you to unmute once the session is over and we open it for Q&A. We also I just request all the participants to on their cameras throughout the session, as this will help create a more engaging environment and allowing a better connect. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our faculty for today's session, Ms. Ramya. She is a food technologist and expert with 20 years experience in the field of food science, food safety and quality standards, and laboratory system and management. She is a food safety trainer and auditor with a master's in food production management and experience in food analytical services, product development, and quality standard implementations. Further, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good
Ramya
afternoon.
ma'am.
Hi,
So
Saurabh.
yeah,
Yeah,
so we can start further.
sure. Thank you. Thank you, Saurabh. Yes, and very, very good afternoon to one and all who have joined in for this webinar on food adulteration and detection techniques. And a very warm thanks to QACA also for arranging this webinar. So, like Saurabh said, I'm Ramya, and I'm going to take you through this session on the food adulteration and detection techniques. Just a brief background, I think Saurabh did mention. So I have done my bachelor's in biotechnology and my master's in food production management. I have around 20 years experience in the food industry, which includes various sectors of food quality systems, safety systems, lab systems, and I'm also a trainer and an auditor for the various food standards, including FSSAI hygiene rating and for FOSTAC also. Okay, so that's a brief introduction about me. Moving on to today's session, we are going to take you through the food adulteration and detection techniques. I think this is something which people from the industry, as consumers, it's a big concern today. And I hope this webinar would be very insightful to all of you to ensure and also take controls in preventing food fraud and adulteration. So, just to take you through what is planned for today, the agenda is I will be first and
Your
foremost.
screen is not shared, ma'am, I think so.
Yeah, I'm just sharing because when I share the screen, I can't see the audience. So I
Okay.
just 1 second. Is it okay,
Yes,
Saurabh?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Now we can
Yeah.
see.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so the agenda for today is I'll start off with an introduction and then I will move on to what are the challenges and what is the impact of food fraud or food adulteration. Then moving on to the risk of food fraud and what are the elements of food fraud. And of course, moving on to the factors that actually contribute to food fraud. Okay, so this is one of the overviews which we will be having with respect to food fraud and food adulteration. After which, I will take you through cases of food fraud that have been happening all over the world for many decades as such. And we will also be discussing about India's scenario, current scenario, and what are the fraudulent activities that are prevalent in India. And also moving on, the final session will be on the prevention and detection methods. Okay, so there are various prevention and detection methods which we have. So to start off, I will just give you an overview, and in specific, we'll also discuss on certain detection methods which are, given by FSSAI as to how to the basic simple detection methods which can be carried out at the industry level and also at the consumer level also. Okay, so this is overall the agenda for today's webinar. Okay, so moving on, uh, food fraud and adulteration. I think this is something we in the industry have, it keeps coming to our front quite often. And apart from that, as consumers also, we kind of are aware of these words, food fraud and adulteration. More than, I think, food fraud, this word adulteration is something which I think as consumers we are all aware of. Okay, and this is not something which has, started in the recent past. It is actually food fraud and food adulteration dates back to many, many centuries. But however, of late, it has been very, very widely discussed within the food industry and also amongst consumers because of the various incidents that are happening, and also because of the age that we are living in with the social media. Any of the incidents that do happen in any part of the world comes to light immediately. Okay, and it goes around like it becomes viral. People are more aware of what is happening. So this is a current scenario on one front. Apart from that, actually, if you see the number of cases of food fraud have risen nearly tenfold in the past 4 years. That is just between 2020 to 24 or 2023 as such. There has been a tenfold increase in the number of food fraud cases. Okay, and this is a huge concern. Okay, be it in a manufacturer, be it anyone in the food sector. I think this is something which we all need to, be very, very concerned about. Okay, because it is not only threatening to the consumer safety, but also it exposes such heavy financial risks to the various businesses that we are a part of. Okay, so this is kind of, the actually this is cases that have been reported, okay, and worldwide. And if you see from 2020, wherein it was around 480 cases that had been reported on for food fraud, it has gone up to 5,475 cases in the year of 2023. Okay, and this is like a humongous increase in the number of food fraud cases. And we are just talking about food fraud cases. We are not going into the other aspects of food safety, etc. Just food fraud cases have increased to such a humongous amount in the past 4 years. Okay, so having said this, before I go into what is food fraud and also, what is the prevention and detection techniques, many of you have joined from various sectors, including I know a lot of common consumers also have joined this webinar. So just to take you through, when we talk about food science or any aspect of food, okay, we have what is called as the four pillars of food science. Okay, and when we talk about these pillars of food science, the first one which we usually are aware of is food quality. Then we have something called food safety. Okay, and the other two pillars are the food fraud and the food defense. Okay, now in terms of food quality, okay, in terms of, it could be just about the taste, the texture, how a product is perceived in terms of weight. All these can come under the quality attributes of the food. Okay, and moving on to the food safety, it is basically ensuring that the food that is sold in the market, that is given to consumers in a restaurant, any of these food which is served to the consumer should be free of any hazards. Or what we talk about in the food industry is like hazards, as in it should be free of any ill effects or any items that could cause harm to the consumer. Okay, so these are the science-based the knowledge that we get, which is on food safety, which is all very, very technical and science-based. If you take, for example, milk, you will know, as science people, you will know, okay, these are the microorganisms that could be present, these are the chemicals that could be present, and what are the possible physical hazards. It could be a glass, it could be a metal piece. All these, if it is present in the product, it can be a food safety issue. Okay, and quality in terms of if it has not got the right taste or texture or flavor, those are all the quality aspects. Okay, now this is what we talk about as unintentional or accidental adulteration. If there is a food safety hazard, okay, in many cases we talk about food safety hazards. If there is a piece of glass or a piece of metal which is present in the product, it's a safety issue, right? And this is not intentional. Okay, so unintentional or accidental adulteration, the food quality and safety aspects are come under this unintentional or accidental adulteration. Okay, the other one, which is the intentional adulteration. Okay, and when we talk about intentional adulteration, we can actually divide this into two. One is a food defense and the other is a food fraud or food adulteration, which we're going to talk in detail about. So in terms of intentional adulteration, the food defense, okay, it is something which is more of an ideological motive. Okay, someone intentionally sabotages your product, okay, and the main aim of them to sabotage the product is to cause harm. Okay, is to cause harm to the consumer, to the manufacturer's name, credibility, or for some kind of ideological motive. Okay, they're not happy with the organization. It could be internal, it could be because of a competitor. Any of these are come these things come under a food defense. Okay, ideologically driven, and the main motive is to cause harm. Okay, the other one, which is food fraud, is an intentional adulteration, and the main motive here is for an economic gain. Okay, so move in 100% of the cases which wherein food fraud is done is a deliberate adulteration in on with the main aim of ensuring there is an economic motive behind it. Okay, so these are the pillars of food science, and what we are going to today focus on is the intentional adulteration with respect to food fraud. Okay, so food fraud or intentional adulteration, we have a lot of governing bodies which have given various definitions for these. And one or two of these definitions are: one is the deliberate and intentional, it could be a substitution, addition, or a tampering or misinterpretation of food, or the ingredients or packaging or labeling or any food product information, wherein that could be a food fraud. Or when you also provide false or misleading statements about a food, about a product, for any economic gain. Okay, that could impact the consumer health. This is also a definition of a food fraud. Okay, so it is the intentional adulteration. Like I said, food fraud has a main aim of having an economic motive behind carrying out these food fraudulent activities. And the various ways it can be done is by substitution, addition, tampering. All these, I think, we will be going down into each one as we go through today's session. Okay. So before I go into the in-depth examples, I just want to give you all, I'm sure all of us at some point have come across various incidents of food fraud. Okay, now just to give you an idea, so the common examples which we usually come across is, of course, one is milk. Milk is a very, very common product which can be adulterated, okay, with various adulterants. And I will take you through what are the various adulterants and what are the detection methods shortly. Okay, the other one is by adding sugar to honey. Okay, when honey is a product which many times it always comes under scrutiny whether it is actually honey or has sugar water been added to it. Okay, then there has been cases elsewhere in the world where there is a type of beef called wagyu beef, and instances have been there where regular beef has been sold as wagyu beef. Okay, and even in cases of where many people inject uh, shrimp or prawn with certain gels to make it look larger and also weigh more. Okay, adding melamine to infant formula, this has happened before, and adding lead to powdered turmeric, adding wood dust to coriander. Okay, and also false claiming, selling non-halal products as halal, okay, without intentionally affecting food safety. Then there have been cases of using formaldehyde in the ice, which is used to preserve food, fish. Okay, or when you do not declare allergens which have been added to products, that also comes under the food fraud. Okay, so these are some of the overall examples over the history, what has happened, which keeps coming up on and off. And especially in terms of undeclared allergens. Okay, that is of a that's something which keeps happening very often. If you go into various regulatory websites, you would see that there have been products which have been recalled because certain allergens have not been declared. Okay, and even now currently There is a whole in the UK under the Food Standards Authority Agency. There is a huge amount of mustard powder which is being recalled from the market shelves. Various types of mustard, various under various brands which are being recalled because they have of the potential risk of peanuts being present in it, and this has not been declared in the any of these products. Okay, so if a manufacturer or has knowingly not declared any allergen, that also comes under a food fraud. Okay, addition, substitution, selling a cheaper variety, addition of certain chemicals to a product, any of this. Okay, and all these again comes back to the main thing, which is for a economic motive. Okay, so what are the challenges and also what is the impact of food fraud? Okay, so when we talk about the challenges, okay, food fraud actually, these kind of food fraud cases can decrease the trust and the confidence of consumers in the entire country's food supply chain. And even when cases where such systems are safe and becoming safer. Okay, I know many of you have joined in from the manufacturing sector, and you all would be putting in so many systems in place to ensure the safety of the food products that are sold. Okay, every sector with also with respect to FSSAI also, a lot of focus is there on ensuring that the products that are sold in the market, especially the food products that are sold in the market, are safe for consumption. And there are so many regulations, so many control measures that we are having, and we keep upgrading and improving our systems on a, it's like a continual improvement process that is followed. Okay, so on one end, manufacturers are striving hard to have these systems to address food safety issues, and the other side you have these fraudulent activities. So what happens is, again, the consumers, their trust and confidence in the industry itself is would go down. Okay, so we definitely have to address this, and there are some, it's not easy, there are a lot of challenges in how we can address these food fraud cases. Okay, because if you see, successful food fraud can also make it more likely than fraudsters take, because they take further risks with food, thereby placing the safety and integrity of food supply chains in danger. Okay, so fraudsters, they would go to any extent to carry out these fraudulent activities, and thereby the entire food supply chain itself becomes under a bears the brunt of this. Okay, so there are key challenges, because when you do a food fraud, there are definitely challenges are there which make the detection and also preventing food fraud difficult. Okay, and the first and foremost challenge is the thin line. There is a very, very thin line between a food fraud and a marketing. Okay, it is not very clear as to what is meant by food fraud and where the line between the food fraud and marketing lies. Okay, so this actually requires a very, very clear understanding and also a legal definition of food fraud. Okay, because one side, you cannot slow down the innovation or the various number of products that are being developed in the sector. Okay, at the same time, you need to ensure that whatever the fraudulent activities and the marketing, don't cross over. Okay, so it is also required that the health and the trust of customers and consumers are intact. Okay, so what is there is a very thin line, so there has to be a clear definition of what comes under food fraud and where, the line between the food fraud and the marketing lies. Okay, the second aspect, which is a challenge, is that detection of fraudulent activities is difficult. Okay, certain, of course, we will be seeing certain detection methods which can be done, but it is not possible for all the fraudulent activities can that to be detected easily. Okay, so you need specialized instruments and knowledge, and it may become difficult or impossible for consumers to detect food fraud at supermarkets or market stalls. Okay, so one, as manufacturers, we do have in various controls, and these are becoming mandatory also, how you ensure or prevent food fraud from your supplier in your supply chain. Okay, so that is one end. But what about the consumers? Okay, consumers, it is difficult for them to detect all the aspects of food fraud. Okay, so without specialized instruments and knowledge, it is becoming difficult for consumers to detect food fraud unless there is an immediate health hazards. The consumers, most cases, are not even aware of what is the food fraud that has happened. Okay, even after consuming the product, and thereby they just become victims of food fraud. Okay, so this means that the fight against food fraud cannot be just left to the consumers. Okay, it is an integral approach. It is not only the consumers who have to take some action, it is also a joint initiative which has to be taken by governments and by, of course, the food industry. Okay. So this is a second challenge that we have. And the third one is that food fraudsters, those who do these fraudulent activities, they are, very, very proactive. So they actively avoid detection. And once they find out that there has been one method that has been discovered, they go on to a different method, and also they try to so when they develop the next method, it gives them a little longer time for them for them to be identified or the fraudulent activities to be detected. Okay, so this third problem, wherein the fraudsters keep innovating, okay, is made worse by the fact that the kinds of products that they are using to adulterate food, okay, such as melamine and other chemicals, these are not very easy to be detected through the regular food safety and quality tests which are being carried out. Okay. So thereby what happens, we in the industry and as regulatory bodies, we have to come up with further innovative methods to ensure to prevent and detect these food fraud, and by coming up with latest technology and also various innovations in the food sector. Okay. So these are the challenges that are being faced by the manufacturers and also at the consumer end. Okay. Now, what happens? What about the impact of this food fraud? Okay. So not all the fraudulent activities that happen, okay, not everything can have a health risk, but definitely, that is one of the impacts that can be faced, the health risk to the consumers. Okay. So food fraud has some serious health risks since during most instances, the adulterants or the ingredients or any unapproved enhancements which are added to the product, they can easily lead to foodborne illness, okay, or it can lead to any allergic reactions, and in certain cases, long-term health complications. Okay, so for example, there has been cases of melamine being added to the milk, and this has a direct impact on the health of the consumers. And there has been case of melamine addition to milk powder in China, which I will be talking about shortly. So this has actually resulted in kidney damage in various infants. Okay, so this is one of the direct health risks that the consumers face. Okay, so consumers may also be unwittingly be exposed to dangerous compounds which are present in fake and mislabeled products. Okay, one factor is that the addition of chemicals, adulterants directly to the product. The other one is fake products also pose a huge threat to the consumers. Okay, so this is one of the serious implications of committing food fraud, wherein the health of the consumer is directly at a risk. The second aspect is the economic losses. Okay, we being in the food industry, okay, no, there is one sector of the people who commit one segment, or maybe a small percentage of them who are committing these fraudulent activity. But the brunt is borne by the entire sector. Okay, so economic losses for even legitimate businesses, because food fraud is economically very injurious to legitimate businesses. Okay, they have to face unlimited competition from fraudsters. That is one. Okay, wherein fraudsters can sell their products at a lower cost by unethical practices. Okay, and the other one is because of these fraudulent activities that have been that take place. Okay, those who are doing legitimate businesses, they have to also bear the brunt by increasing the testing, etc. Okay, for example, in the year of around 2007, 2008, there have been cases of Sudan red dye being added to the chili powder. Okay, and this was exported to Europe, and when these products were received at Europe, it was rejected because Sudan red dye, which is actually a carcinogen, it is not approved for addition to the any food products, because it was the chili powder was found to have Sudan red dye. The entire consignment was rejected. Okay, but it didn't stop with that. Okay, what EU then passed a law is any product, okay, any food product which contains chili powder or even red chili, okay, any source of red chili, all those products have to be tested for Sudan red, and then only they would accept it into the EU market. Okay, so what the fraudulent activity that was done by certain companies, actually the legitimate businesses also had to bear the brunt, because for every consignment that they were shipping, even though they were not part of this food fraud, they had to test the products and then send it out. Okay, so these are things which industries face because of fraudulent activities, adulteration, which someone in the supply chain carries out. Okay, another one is also with respect to horse meat scandal, which resulted in huge economic. There was a horse meat scandal in the UK, and this actually led to a huge economic loss for various brands, and a lot of recalls were done, and also which also led to the damage of various brand reputations. Okay, so this is one of the impact, another impact of food fraud. Okay, one, like I told you, health risk of consumers. Second is the economic losses with legitimate businesses face, and then the other one is the loss of consumer trust. Okay, so the recurrent case of food fraud damages consumers' trust in a brand name and the industry as a whole. Okay, and this may be a concern to businesses. Okay, because once you lose out on a consumer, it is very very difficult. It takes a lot of time and effort to get back the consumer's trust. Okay, because ultimately we are all also consumers. Once we realize that there is a product, okay, which is susceptible for fraud, or there is a brand which there because some fraudulent activity has happened, then I'm sure it is going to take us a lot of time to accept the product again. Okay, so transparency and tight quality controls are required to regain the consumer trust. Okay, in many cases, as manufacturers, we may not be directly doing any fraudulent activity. It could be in our supply chain, it could be from our vendors, suppliers of our raw material. Okay, but in the end, we are the ones who might lose out on the consumer or our customers' trust. Okay, and the other one, which is an impact of food fraud, is that the regulatory and the legal challenges. Okay, food fraud also raises many regulatory and legal issues, and enforcement agencies are actually struggling with a constantly moving target of new techniques of fraud, and they must continually develop methods for their detection. Okay, if you see, all you need to do is just go in and just type food fraud in any of your Google Chrome or anything, and you would come across so many instances. Every other day there are people who are being, caught because of various fraudulent activities. Okay, addition of colors, um, adulteration, selling of adulterated products. Okay, and then also in terms of um, uh, adulterated products. Okay, so many aspects which are happening in the industry. Okay, so enforcement and agencies are actually struggling because there is so many techniques of fraudulent activities that are happening, and as regulatory bodies, it is their responsibility to ensure that these fraudulent activities are controlled. Okay, so criminal prosecutions against fraudsters may be lengthy and resource intensive, as has been witnessed in many high profile prosecutions. Okay, so these are some of the impacts of food fraud. One is it is a direct health risk to the consumer. It can impact your business, okay, wherein you can have an economic loss. It can lead to consumer and customer trust. Okay, it not only the consumer, even the customer trust. You are a manufacturer, you are selling, you are a B2B business. Okay, some fraudulent activity has happened because of your raw material. Okay, then once you lose out on your customer, it is going to be very, very difficult or practically impossible to regain your customer. Okay, and also the regulatory and legal challenges which the government bodies, regulatory bodies are constantly facing, because there are so many ways of fraudulent activities which keep coming up. Now, there I just did talk about the health risk for the consumer, just elaborating a little bit on this. Okay, so when we talk about the risk of food fraud to the consumer, we can actually categorize it into three types. Okay, one is a direct food safety risk. Okay, wherein is if a chemical is added to a product, or any kind of mainly it's related to chemical, and if that chemical or any addition of any other component or in which is added to the product can have a direct and an immediate risk to the consumer. Okay, so that is a direct food safety risk where the consumer is put at an immediate risk. Okay, that is one example is addition of melamine to milk powder that results in acutely toxic exposure. That is, it can even lead to renal failures. Okay, and there have been incidents in our industry where this has happened. Okay, then addition of chemicals to milk, that again can have a direct impact on the direct food safety risk. Hiding of substances resulting in undeclared allergens. That's an important thing, because I'm sure all of you are aware of allergens and the impact allergens have on various people. Okay, so we have like in India, if you see, we have 8 allergens, and if you go to UK, they have around 14 allergens, and you go to the US, they have 9 allergens. So every country there are so many allergens. Now, if you are manufacturing and if you're selling your product in a particular country and you have not declared a certain allergen, which is a part of their allergen list of allergens, then that is also a fraudulent activity. It doesn't stop with that, because presence of undeclared allergens will directly impact the health of the consumer. Okay, suppose I consume a product which has nuts, and I am allergic to nuts, and this product, the nuts has not been declared. Okay, it can cause serious health impact to me. I can have rashes, I can sneeze, I can have a wheezing, I can have respiratory problems. Okay, in certain cases it can even lead to death of the consumer. Okay, so the declaration of allergens is becoming very, very important, and also there is a lot of stringency which is coming in with respect to allergen and allergen handling. Okay, so on one side, having said that, if you intentionally do not declare any particular adult allergen, then definitely that is going to have a direct food safety risk. Okay. The second type of food fraud, the risk to the consumer, is an indirect food safety risk. Okay. In this indirect food safety risk, the consumer is put at risk because of long-term exposure. Okay. That is continuously getting exposed to a particular product can cause certain risks to the consumer. Like, for example, high levels of heavy metals in food supplements can cause a long term, the risk may not be immediate, but long term exposure can lead to a risk. Okay. The third one is a technical food fraud. Okay. And this, there is no risk to the direct or indirect food safety risk. But when there is a misrepresentation or information is not provided accurately, that we call as a technical food fraud. Okay. Wherein if there is a premium for as a consumer, suppose you are paying a premium for a particular type of, say, honey, okay, or a particular type of tea, okay, and because that tea or that particular tea brand, or not brand, the variety of tea fetches a premium in the market because it is sourced from a particular geographical area. Okay. Now, if the manufacturer has declared the tea to be one of a particular area, but the actual tea which is in the pack is from a different area, and that tea which is in the pack is of a lower quality, that is also a food fraud risk. So as a consumer, you are paying more for that product, but the actual product is not what you're thinking it is. So it's a technical food fraud risk. Okay. So misrepresentation of country of origin information, okay, it indicates that the consumer is being cheated. Okay. And in addition to that, it also indicates that there is a compromise on the safety of the product because of there could be a lack of the traceability. Okay. So these are the risks of food fraud to the consumer. One is a direct food safety risk. Okay. The other is an indirect food safety risk. And the third is a technical food fraud, which happens. Okay. So having said that, there are three elements of food fraud. Okay. And this I've got these details from the Food and Agricultural Organization of WHO, wherein they talk about three elements of food fraud. The first one is intention. Okay. The second is deception, and the third is a undue advantage. Okay. So these three elements of food fraud, that is intention plus deception plus undue advantage, all these three put together leads to the food fraud. Now, what are these three elements? What is the intention? What is a deception? And what is an undue advantage? Just give me one second. Okay. So intention is it is something that separates food fraud from mistakes and errors. Okay, you are carrying out a fraudulent activity with a intention. You know you are doing that fraudulent activity. Okay, so that is an intention. In many cases, when we talk about food safety, it is not intended. Okay, when we miss out on a particular hazard, or when we the temperature in certain processing is not met. Okay. Okay, because it is not an intentional activity. Okay, so intention separates food fraud from mistakes and errors. So when you're on purpose carrying out certain activities, then it comes under food fraud. Okay, so of course in any industry there could be some errors which can happen. Okay, that does not come under the food fraud. Okay. The second aspect is deception. Okay, deception by any means. Okay, it could be in your label or in your advertisement or at any stage of your supply chain, wherein you're misleading the buyer, customer, or consumer as to the integrity or value of the food. Okay, so suppose you have declared, okay, no added sugar in your juice. Okay, So if you say no added sugar, but then there is a percentage of sugar which is being added, you're misleading your or deceiving your customer or consumer. Okay. So these kind of labels or advertisements, okay, wherein you are portraying something, but then you are actually giving a different thing to your customer or your consumer. That is your a way of deceiving the customer or the consumer. Okay. So deception can be through any means. It could be through your labels, advertisements, okay, and at any stage in the supply chain, wherein you it can mislead the buyer or the consumer. Okay. In fact, a couple of months back also, there was a lot of scrutiny on the thing which was like, health drinks. Okay, many companies, they were asked to remove this claim of health drinks from their label and the advertisements because of various reasons. Okay, because of maybe the excess of sugar, or they were like, because they were asked to prove on what basis are they saying it's a health drink. Okay, so there was a lot of scrutiny, and FSSAI came down on these kind of companies and ensured that those kind of claims on the product are removed unless they can validate and prove it is what they are claiming. Okay, so that is a deception. The third one is an undue advantage. Okay, so in terms of undue advantage, food fraud is different from other offenses because of the presence of an undue advantage or an unfair advantage, which most often takes the form of an economic gain. Okay, so in case of a food fraud, like I've been mentioning from the from the beginning, it is mostly for an economic gain. Okay, no, unless there is an injury which is caused to the or an illness to the human health. Okay, the impact or the impact of the food fraud is not much. Okay, so that's why they say that food fraud has an undue advantage as compared to many other offenses. Okay, so as such, food fraud could be understood as the intentional deception of a customer or consumer for an undue advantage, which is mostly for an economic reason. Okay, so these are the elements of food fraud wherein we have intention, deception, and an undue advantage. Now, what actually contributes to the food fraud? Okay, what are the factors that contribute to food fraud? Why do people do carry out the food fraud? Of course, primary reason is that the economic gain, but what are the factors which can make it more possible for the fraudulent activities to be carried out? One is an opportunity. Okay, the opportunity we talk about is that the technical aspects of the product. Okay, so every product will have a certain type of physical state and the processing that is done. Okay, so based on the type of product, it could be easy for a fraudulent activity to take place. Okay, and as you will see when I go through the examples, there are very, not all the products are susceptible to fraudulent activity. Some are very, very common. It could be the a milk product, or it could be a product which is in the powder form. Okay, these are more susceptible to fraudulent activity as compared to something like if you take a whole spice, or turmeric as such, and turmeric powder, the turmeric powder would be more susceptible to fraudulent activity. Okay, the second one is the transparency in the supply chain, which is lacking. Okay, that because there is a lack of transparency in the supply chain, that also gives us an opportunity for various fraudsters to carry out fraudulent activities. And the number of times the products changes hands. Okay, right from the farm till the manufacturer, there are various distribution channels, various hands that are changed. So that also can be an opportunity for fraudulent activities to be carried out. Okay, and also in terms of the difference in availability and the demand, that is also a opportunity, and it is also a driving factor for the carrying out the which directly contributes to the economic factors. Okay, so in terms of economic factors, why is food fraud done? Of course, when customers, try to reduce prices, or there is the supply versus demand, there is a difference, or there is a short supply in products, okay, or there are trade barriers. All these are the economic factors which contribute to food fraud. Okay, and then there is a lack of control measures. Okay, it is not possible. When we talk about food safety, you want to do a microbial testing. Okay, of your milk or any other product that is manufactured, the amount of testing that happens is quite more. It's much more rigorous as compared to the testing for fraudulent activities. Okay, so lack of control measures, okay, less amount of testing that is done, lack of regulatory enforcements, okay, to control food fraud. All these are factors which contribute to food fraud. In addition to that, the at the manufacturer level, insufficient supplier approval programs. I think this is something which was lacking, but being in the manufacturing sector, all of you would be aware that there is a more and more importance on ensuring that the supplier who you are using for your raw materials, ingredients, they are, controlled. Okay, so supplier approval programs are becoming very, very important in terms of audits which are done on suppliers, in terms of testing of end products. Okay, testing of raw materials. Okay, so far there have been some lapses in the supplier approval program, and this has also been a factor for food fraud. Okay, and like I already said, history of food fraud, recurring cases in the same product. Okay, milk is a classic example. Spices. Okay, you have milk in certain milk products also. Ghee, and milk as such. So there are recurring cases in the same product, and that also gives an idea to fraudsters to carry out continual carrying out the fraudulent activities. Okay, so these are the factors that contribute to food fraud: opportunity, economic factors, there is a lack of control measures, insufficient supplier approval programs, and also the history of food fraud. Okay. So what we have seen so far is with respect to food fraud. Okay, we talked about in general what is food fraud, what are the challenges, what is the impact, what is the risk. Okay, now when we talk about food fraud, there are certain terms that we need to remember. Okay, this is more in terms of for the industry aspect. What are the various terms that are, the common terms used in the industry with respect to food fraud? Okay, one is substitution. Okay, wherein you are substituting one product with another one. Okay, that is, or you're partially substituting a product. Okay, so for example, of one example of substitution is that you have sunflower oil which could be substituted with mineral oil. Okay, or there is in milk the hydrolyzed leather protein has been added. Okay, so this is an example of a substitution. Okay, the next term that we need to know is concealment. Okay, wherein something is hidden. Okay, as the word says, concealment, hiding something. Okay, that is poultry which is injected with hormones to conceal diseases. Okay, so they inject hormones to conceal any kind of diseases, or harmful food coloring. I think all of us are aware of that. Many cases where watermelon is injected with coloring. Okay, harmful food coloring is applied to fresh fruit to cover the defects. Okay, that is a concealment. The third is type of food fraud is mislabeling. Okay, when you label based on an inaccurate or unsafe origin, or also in terms of expiry. Okay, I think this is one thing which I wanted to tell you. One is the mislabeling. Recently, I think about 10 days back, there were some food safety regulatory bodies, I mean FSSAI inspectors, who found certain products okay, in various in some warehouses or manufacturing industries, where that product was, the date of manufacture was ahead of that date. So when they went to raid that, when they went to inspect that particular facility, they found packages which had a manufacturing date was ahead. Okay, so if they had gone on 15th November, the products showed that the manufacturing date was 17th November. Okay, when we have not even come to 17th November. Okay, so that is also mislabeling. Okay, then when you're giving an incorrect or different origin, okay, that is mislabeling. Okay, then you have a case, or these are certain cases that have happened. One is that the toxic Japanese star anise was labeled as Chinese star anise. Okay, that is mislabeling. Or mislabeling of recycled cooking oil. Okay, so that is comes under mislabeling. Then you have the entire gray market, wherein sale of excess unreported products happen. Gray market production, then gray market production. Then you have theft, diversion. Okay, all those also come under food fraud. Then the next one is unapproved enhancements. Okay, one thing which I already told you was the addition of Sudan dye to red chili, and the other one is melamine protein. Melamine was added to milk powder to increase the protein value. Then you have counterfeit products, copies of popular food products which are not produced as per the safety requirements. So you would have, fraudulent products, duplicates in the market. Okay, and then the other one is dilution, wherein the product is watered down, wherein you're using unsafe water, or it can also be using of different kinds of oils. Okay, one example is olive oil was diluted with potentially toxic tea tree oil. Okay, so these are some of the terminologies that we have in the food industry, and I will also take you through various cases of what has what are the various consignment or substitution that has happened in the industry. Okay, before we go into the specific cases, if you see this history of food fraud, it didn't start, recently, and it actually even way before 1998. In 1981, the first case of food fraud was, came to light because of the impact it had. But just to take you through, there have been various cases. If you go to history of food fraud, 1998, in the US, there was apple juice, which was actually replaced with artificially flavored sugar water. Okay. And the other one is in 2008, that is in China, addition of melamine to milk powder. This was one of the important aspects, because it actually led to the illness of many infants and also deaths of some infants also. Okay, so this was one of the reasons, a lot of focus on food fraud was triggered. And the other one is also because of this 2013 in Europe and UK, um, beef was substituted with horse meat. Okay, horse meat is cheaper than beef, so beef was substituted with horse meat. Okay, then in 2011 you had counterfeit brand bottles of branded wine. Then you had honey, which was replaced with ordinary blended honey. Okay, then in 2019 again with in Punjab you had a plant which was sealed because it was producing spices and food commodity, and most of this the chili powder was mixed with chemicals which are not allowed in food. 2020 you had a case of where Darjeeling tea was substituted with Nepal tea. Darjeeling tea fetches a premium in the market as compared to Nepal tea. And then you also had cases of turmeric being lead chromate being added to turmeric in various in the Indian subcontinent, Nepal, Pakistan, etc. Okay. Again, just to give you the world over the cases in terms of honey being adulterated, juice becoming, adding chemical substances to juice, adulterated milk, okay, oil being adulterated, liquor like vodka, wine being adulterated. And then you also have, fish also. Okay, one of the things which are substitution is in terms of high cost fish varieties are substituted with lower varieties. Okay, so these are some of the cases that have been happening all over the world, and I'd like to just take you through certain specific cases, okay, because of the impact it has had, in the food industry, and also because of the impact it has had in the to the consumers. Okay, so it one of the cases is in was in 1981, wherein it was called as the Spanish olive oil. Okay, so in this case, aniline was added. Okay, and this aniline is a chemical compound which is actually used to make dyes, plastics, and other industrial materials. And this pure aniline is very, very poisonous. Okay, so in 1981, there was a batch of industrial rapeseed. Okay, that is a common oil which is used in the Europe. Okay, and this rapeseed oil was contaminated with aniline. Okay, and then it was sold as olive oil. Okay, so the rapeseed oil is actually used in the UK and Europe, but it is of a lower. The price point is much lower as compared to olive oil. So aniline was added and it was sold as olive oil. And the impact was that over 1,000 people died because of this presence of aniline in the oil. Okay, so this was called as a toxic oil syndrome, which triggered a violent reaction in many people, and it actually led to the death of nearly 1,000 people in Spain. Okay, and this incident actually became the deadliest foodborne illness disaster in modern history. Okay, so this was way back in 1981. Then in 2007, there was a American pet food scandal. Now, what happened was in melamine hit the papers. This melamine protein is something which we all came to know because of in what happened in China. But much before that, thousands of pets in the US died after consuming pet food which was produced with melamine tainted wheat gluten. Melamine is a protein which increases the actually it increases the protein content in any product. Okay, so thousands of pets in the US actually died because of melamine, which is added to wheat gluten. Okay, and humans were also affected because 3 million chickens had eaten this melamine containing wheat, and this was then eaten consumed by the humans, and thereby humans were also affected. Okay, so sometimes the impact can be through the some kind of food chain. Okay, so with animal food generally regulated less stringently as compared to human products that are sold for human consumption, the pet food scandal was a reminder that the animals are also exposed to dangers of food fraud as much as we are. Okay, and then the melamine case. I'm sure most of you are aware of this melamine case. In 2008, China faced a major food scandal because of the melamine, which is a toxic chemical, and this was added to infant formula, okay, infant milk powder, and other dairy products. And this adulteration was intended to actually increase the protein content in the infant food. Okay, as a result, nearly 3 lakh infants were affected, with many suffering from kidney stones and other severe health issues. Okay, and this was one of the biggest global outcry which was brought to light, and based on that, a lot of changes have been brought in terms of food safety regulations, not only in China but also world over. Okay, the other case where peanuts. Okay, in this case, what happened was the company, a Peanut Corporation of America, um, he has been actually imprisoned because intentionally knowing that the peanut that was sold in the market had salmonella, knowingly he shipped salmonella contaminated peanut butter across 46 states, which actually led to the death of 7 people and many people falling sick. Okay, so on one side, when we are responsible to follow the regulations to ensure safety and quality of the fraud of our products, these kind of food fraud cases are a reminder that even one person trying to cut corners can have some catastrophic results. Okay, This is another important scandal. Okay. And this was what actually led to this entire food fraud and everything coming to light. And, and it brought to light or ensured that everyone started addressing the food fraud activities. Okay. So this horse meat scandal in 2013, Europe was rocked by the discovery that horse meat was being sold as beef in various processed food products. Okay. And in January 2013, what happened was the Food Safety Authority of Ireland, they published a study revealing that horse DNA had been detected in some beef burger products in Ireland. And this raised concerns about the traceability of the meat ingredients and the products that were entering the food chain. Okay. So they, out of 27 products that they analyzed, okay, 10 of them tested positive for horse DNA and 23, and then the other, certain products tested positive for pig DNA. Okay. So the beef burger products testing positive for horse DNA were produced by one food processing plant in Ireland and one in UK. Okay. And this widespread adulteration affected numerous countries and brands, and therefore it led to recalls and loss of consumer trust. Okay. And this scandal highlighted the complexities of the global food safety chain and the need for better traceability and regulation. Okay. In fact, the Tesco, which is one of the leading retail outlets in UK, their market value slumped by nearly 360 million euros because of this horse meat scandal. Okay. And this was actually one of the reasons why, there was further, I'll just talk about the Elliott review. And the horse meat scandal was one of the reasons why the Elliott review was brought in. And based on the Elliott review, there are various all over the food safety standards which have been implemented in many countries. They ensure that fraudulent activities are addressed as part of your food safety also. Okay. Then just a quick thing of other food fraud cases. You have substitution, wherein olive oil is, common. It's common. It could be adulterated with cheaper varieties of soybean or sunflower oil. Then you can have a fish species substitution. Okay. So, for example, red snapper, which is a high cost fish, could be replaced with a lower cost fish or tilapia, etc. Okay, so this is in terms of substitution. Then you have counterfeit products, counterfeit wines, high-end wines, spirits. Okay, these are faked with labels and packaging, which are very, very close to the actual genuine products. Okay, then in terms of fake organic labels also. Okay, so there is a demand for increase, demand for organic products, and this has actually led to counterfeit organic labels. Okay. So when you're going in or when you're declaring anything as organic, I'm sure you know, there is a whole process that has to be followed in terms of, right from the agricultural practices up to manufacturing, and then you have to get an audit done to be certified as an organic product. Okay. But there are some of them who claim it to be organic, making false claims. Okay. This again will undermine the consumer's trust and harms the legitimate organic producers. Okay. Then incorrectly labeled seafood. Okay. Mislabeling of, certain varieties. Then you have mislabeling of fish, you have mislabeling of beef. Okay. These are things that are cases of food fraud that have been happening in the industry. Okay. Then there is also a stolen cheese. One of the cases of food fraud I did mention is theft and diversion. Okay. Well, there has been a case in Italy where, there was an organized crime group who was involved in the theft and illegal distribution of a variety of cheese, okay, in the black market. And baby formula, which is a high value item, was also often targeted for theft. Stolen formula can end up repackaged and also sold through unauthorized channels. Okay. So this is in terms of theft and diversion. Then you have unapproved enhancements. Okay, and this is something which I think all of us would be aware of, because of the unapproved enhancements is to attract the consumer by adding or addition of colors to various products. Okay, now when there are some approved colors which are added to products, then it's fine. Okay, but there are also illegal dyes which are added to spices or to any products. Then when these kind of additions happen, then which could possibly impact the health of the consumer. Okay, I already mentioned about the Sudan red dye. Okay, this was been added to chili powder. Then you have addition of lead chromate, which is added to to turmeric. And this again, these are all unapproved dyes, illegal dyes, which are not approved for use in the food industry. Okay, and of late, I think recently, you about 6 months back, you would have come across a case of addition of rhodamine dye to cotton candy or gobi Manchurian, and this has been banned in various countries. Sorry, various states in India, because rhodamine dye is actually a textile dye. It is used in the textile industry. It is not approved for use in the food industry. Okay, so these kind of unapproved enhancements also can are cases of food fraud. And the other one is the unauthorized hormones which are used in meat products. Okay, use of unauthorized hormones in livestock to promote growth. Okay, is also another form of food fraud. Okay, so these hormones can remain in the meat and potentially cause issues, health issues to consumers. So regulatory bodies are having strict guidelines on what are the hormones that are to be used, and also what is the level at which it can be used. Okay, one is directly hormones are used in the meat products. The other is addition of hormones to cattle feed also to increase the milk secretion. Okay, so steroids, hormones, which are added to cattle feed or directly injected to animals to increase the milk secretion. So unapproved hormones which are used, uncontrolled use of these hormones can directly impact the health of the animal and also the human health. Okay. So these are some of the cases of food fraud, okay, which have happened in the industry over a period of many times, many decades. Okay, and the various types of food fraud. It could be substitution, it could be concealment, it could be dilution, it could be unapproved enhancement. Okay, these are various types of food fraud. Okay, apart from that, another one emerging case of food fraud or the challenge is with respect to the growth of the e-commerce, okay, of food in especially the Asia Pacific and India. Okay, so you have countries including India where and also Australia, China, etc., wherein there is a boom in the e-commerce sector. Okay, and if you see in Asia Pacific, three of the top 10 online grocery markets in the world are in Asia, with the majority being in China, followed by Japan and South Korea. Okay, and there are several problems which are being associated with these food e-commerce platforms, particularly between businesses and consumers, which make e-commerce more vulnerable to food fraud. Okay, so these results from the fact that consumers do not have a face-to-face contact with the traders, they do not have an opportunity to inspect food items before purchase, and are typically required to pay in advance of delivery. I think all of us also, India is also an emerging market, not and we have just taken off in terms of the online market for food and other grocery items. But it is important that as consumers we do inspect our products, okay, because there could be certain products which are expired, which are not stored at the proper temperature. Any expired product which is stored sold intentionally to the consumer is also fraudulent activity. Okay, so this is one of the things that we have to also keep in mind. Okay? I just touch upon the Elliott review because the one of the reasons and what actually triggered food industries to adhere or address problems of food fraud was the horse meat crisis into 2013. Okay, so based on this horse meat crisis which happened, the UK government asked a person called Chris Elliott to conduct a review into the assurance of the food supply networks and to make the recommendations. Okay. So this review was actually commissioned by the government to ensure or restore consumer confidence following the horse meat incident in 2013. Okay, and this Professor Elliott he delivered his report in July 2014, and which concluded that a national food crime prevention framework and a food crime unit should be established. And the report advised that any substitution or adulteration in the food chain should be treated as a public health risk until proven otherwise. Okay. In addition to that, his report also was clear that stronger arrangements should be put in place to protect consumers and also called for retailers to prove that they had checked foods properly for adulteration or misrepresentation. Okay, so this report actually expressed concern that there was still no effective contingency plan in case there was another scandal, but then it ensured it brought to light that industries, manufacturers, retailers, and the government had to bring in stringent measures to address the food fraud. Okay, and based on this, based on the Elliott review, many food safety standards, okay, be it FSSE or food safety system certification, or be it BRC, okay, all of them started including addressing of the food fraud and what is the mitigation plans industries should have in place as part of their food safety systems. Okay, so Elliott review was one of the main reasons why food fraud and control measures had to be included as part of the food safety. Okay. So, having seen the overall about the food cases, okay, I'll just touch briefly on the food fraudulent cases in India, okay, and then we will move on to the uh, detection methods, okay, prevention and detection methods. So, food fraud in India, FSSAI is actually responsible, as you all would know, for protecting and promoting health through regulation and supervision of food safety. So, in various food products, be it milk, ghee, edible oil, pulses, mineral water. These have been found to be the most adulterated. Okay, and reports have shown that nearly 1/5 of the products that are manufactured are either misbranded or adulterated. And in 20 there was also a survey, especially with respect to milk. Nearly 68% of the milk, okay, this was not a recent one, it was a slightly older survey which was done, that nearly 68 of the percent of the milk was being adulterated in some form or the other. Okay, and Center for Science Environment in December 2020, they analyzed samples of honey and also found that 77% of the samples which were tested failed the purity tests. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea that yes, there are so many products that have been adulterated, and it is also the FSSAI is coming up very stringently to address various cases of adulterants, okay, in food product. When we talk about milk, adulteration in milk, it could be water, it could be urea. Milk is adulterated with urea, with detergent, with starch. Okay, and some things like rice could be adulterated with just small grains of stones to increase weight. Mustard oil could be adulterated with mixed with rice bran oil. Spices, I think I told you about. It is with turmeric powder, which is either with methanol blue or lead chromate. Okay, and then you have various varieties of dal, which could be adulterated. Colors, okay, which are added to many products. Tea leaves and dust, which could be adulterated with brick powder. And I just went through some of the latest cases, especially in 2024. And if you see, in June, nearly 3,000 kgs of adulterated ghee was seized by the Gujarat Food Safety Authority. And in May 2024, the market was actually flooded with synthetic paneer. Okay, that is again doing the rounds now. Dairy paneer, synthetic paneer. Okay, so the market is being flooded with synthetic paneer. Then recently during the Diwali time, many food items, okay, were seized which were adulterated. It was like something called the mawa, which was with synthetic chemicals, starch. Then you had ghee, which was adulterated. Okay, banned colors were used in sweets. So these are some of the current issues that are happening, as of now in India. Okay. So what should we do? We need to be prepared. We need to prevent and also detect the food fraud. Okay, because ultimately, as manufacturers or consumers, we need to take, be in charge of this. So effective detection and prevention of food fraud are are a significant safeguard to ensuring the integrity of the food chain. Okay, so in terms of manufacturers, there are various advanced analytical techniques which can be used. Okay, you have some of the state of art technologies such as DNA barcoding, isotope analysis, okay, spectroscopy, which will help in the exact determination of the adulteration up to the molecular level. Okay, one of the examples is with respect to honey. I think this was published a couple of years back. Okay, what I just told you about so many varieties of honey, only a couple of a handful of brands were honey were, it was published that only a handful of brands were, the quality or the purity was there. Okay, and this was done by NMR techniques. Okay, so very, very advanced level of techniques which are used to identify up to the molecular level. Okay, so such technologies are capable of detecting any unauthorized additives, mislabeled components, and even substituted ingredients in the food products. So these kind of testing will enable you to identify any particular additives or substituted ingredients in the food product. Okay, like DNA barcoding, which I'll just talk about shortly. Then you have end-to-end supply chain auditing. It is okay. One of the ways we can do is, of course, through advanced techniques, but that alone would not suffice. We also need to do end-to-end supply chain auditing, and this is a very, very important one because it entails profound and frequent auditing along the food chain, and it will help you to establish that your raw material origin, the integrity of the routes, and also compliance with food safety standards. So companies can trace the path right from the farm to the table and also identify what are the various areas of potential vulnerabilities. Okay. Then you have the implementation of the blockchain technology. So what is this blockchain? It actually creates an immutable ledger of all the transactions that have taken place within the supply chain and thereby providing transparency and traceability in activity. Okay, so this technology prevents tampering because every change in the handling of goods is recorded and verifiable. Okay. So this is in terms of food fraud detection, and you also have compliance and training. Compliance with international, national regulations is important. Continuous awareness about the new dimensions of food fraud, its dynamic character, legal implications. Okay, all these are very, very important. As people in the industry, we need to be aware of. We need to do a horizon scanning. Okay, what is happening in the industry? Next is engage with regulators. The company, in close collaboration with governmental and international food safety organizations, work on aligning practice standards with global benchmarks. Okay, and this kind of partnership could bring in, shared resources, intelligence sharing, and coordinated actions against common threats. Okay, then you also have consumer education, which is important. Teach consumers about as to how you can identify symptoms of food fraud, which can help them make better choices and raise awareness among the general population. Okay, and this actually also creates a pressure base for companies to ensure high standards and transparency. Once consumers are made more aware, automatically the onus is on the manufacturers to increase their standards. Okay. Then you also have artificial intelligence and data analytics, which is evolving. AI tools can make use of multi-source data in transactions, records, laboratory results, and market trends to identify any patterns that may affect the food fraudulent events. Okay. And this approach will actually help companies proactively make suggestions regarding fraud risks in advance so that appropriate measures can be made in order to prevent losses from occurring. Okay. So these are some of the strategies you can have for food fraud and detection. I will just quickly take you through two or three strategies in terms of the prevention and detection. One is the DNA barcoding. Okay, so DNA barcoding is basically a biotechnological tool that uses standardized DNA sequences to identify and authenticate food commodities and to detect food fraud. Okay, so this DNA barcoding, what happens is a method of identifying different species of organisms using a short standardized segment of DNA. It's like scanning your barcode on a product in the supermarket, okay, to look at its identity. And here, instead of a barcode, scientists use a specific part of the organism's DNA. Okay. Suppose you have a particular variety of fish. Okay. Now that particular variety of fish will have a particular sequence in the DNA. Okay, so this DNA barcoding will help you identify the actual species, okay, or true species of food, so that cheaper seafood cannot be substituted. Okay, so for example, a study of sushi samples from Taiwan found that capelin roe was commonly used to replace the other fish roe. Okay, so this DNA barcoding would be able, you could identify certain species because of the DNA. Okay, and this is one of the methods. DNA barcoding is being accepted as a global standard, especially for species identification and authentication. Governments, regulatory bodies, and industry stakeholders are also recognizing its potential to ensure food authenticity and protect consumer rights. Okay. The other one is the isotope ratio mass spectrometry. Okay. So isotope IRMS, it's called, has been used to detect food fraud right from 1970s. Okay. In this recent years, the stable isotope analysis has gained increasing attention in controlling food quality and provenance because of its efficiency and the precision. Okay. So here the isotope analysis actually focuses on three aspects of authenticity and traceability. One is discrimination of the food adulteration. Okay, suppose high fructose corn syrup is added to honey, it can be determined through the isotope ratio mass spectroscopy. Okay, then also tracing the geographical origin of food products. Okay, because based on the geographical conditions, the isotope composition of various food products will be different. Okay, so for example, carbon isotope ratios of tomatoes which are grown in North Europe will differ from those grown in South America. So based on the geographical, to identify the geographical origin, isotope ratio mass spectrometry can be used. Okay, and the third one is also verifying organic food. Okay, so this is in terms of isotope ratio mass spectroscopy. Okay, based on the botanical origin or the process that is used, So these processes actually can be traced using carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, those isotopes, and which indicates the origin, history of the food and the beverage products. Okay. So just to give you an idea of that. The next one which we have is the blockchain technology. So blockchain technology can actually help combat food fraud by increasing and improving the transparency and traceability in the food supply chain. Okay, so basically it has ledgers and data security which can help track the food products right from the origin up to the consumption and also verify food safety. Okay, so ways blockchain technology can help with food fraud is one is traceability. Okay, blockchain can help track food products right from their origin, including ingredients, to identify contaminated products, etc., and also to ensure the foodborne illnesses are prevented. Second is transparency. It will help increase transparency in the food supply chain, which can help meet consumer demands for authentic product information. Okay. So what are these kind of technologies that we have in terms of DNA barcoding, isotope ratio mass spectroscopy, and also blockchain technology? These are evolving technologies that are there, okay, which are, being used by certain industries, okay, and it is actually gaining a lot of importance as of now, okay. But one which is in practice, and I'm sure many of you are already aware of this, one control method or prevention method, I would rather say prevention method, is a vulnerability assessment and critical control point. Here we are talking about food fraud vulnerability assessment. Okay. So in terms of any industry, when you want to combat or prevent food fraud, you need to have a documented vulnerability assessment. Okay. So based on what are the types of products that you're manufacturing, what is the raw material that you are purchasing. Okay. So for these raw materials, what are you have to identify and assess what are the potential vulnerabilities. Okay. What are the fraudulent activities that have taken place, or what are the fraudulent activities that are taking place. Okay. So you identify the potential vulnerabilities and you come up with control measures. Okay. So if it is milk, what are all the possible adulterants that could be present in milk? Okay. Where can this potential vulnerability occur? Is it at the dairy farm level? Is it at the transport level? Then what is the control measures that you are going to have in place? Develop and implement mitigation and control measures, and then you prioritize them against the identified vulnerabilities. Okay. So you have to assess the susceptibility of the products to any act of food fraud, and then you come up with the control measures to reduce or eliminate this potential, the identified vulnerability. Okay. And all this has to be a part of your vulnerability assessment and critical control point. And like I already earlier mentioned, this VASIP is also a part of the food safety management system for various food safety standards. Okay. Okay. So what we have seen so far is more with respect to the manufacturers, okay, in terms of detection of food adulterants, etc. Now, coming to simple tests, which our own FSSAI has, come up with, and I'm sure all of you have heard of this DART, which is the Detect Adulteration with Rapid Tests. Okay, so FSSAI has a manual which is available on their website. Okay, which talks about detecting adulterants in various food products by simple test methods. Okay, because we have a diverse group here, I thought I should include this also. I have been mentioning about adulterants in milk. Okay, one of the few adulterants which we have in milk or milk products, all of you know, is with respect to water. Okay, now when you talk about adulterant water being added to milk, okay, one way of detecting, I'll just quickly take you through all these things, okay, because I think we have another 10, 20 minutes. Okay, so testing method is just put a drop of milk on a polished slanting surface. Okay, pure milk will stay. Okay, it will stay or it will flow very, very slowly, leaving a white trail. Okay, now milk that is adulterated will flow immediately, adulterated with water will flow immediately without leaving a mark. Okay, very simple test. Okay, to detect if your milk has been adulterated with water. Okay, second one is detergent is also something which is adulterated or added to milk. Okay, so here, how do you determine if there is a detergent in your milk? Take just about 10 ml of milk of your sample. Okay, and add an equal amount of water. Okay, and then you shake the contents. If milk is adulterated with detergent, it will form a lather. Okay, if it is pure milk, then it will form a very thin foam layer because of the agitation. But if there is a lot of lather that comes out because there is a detergent, you know how detergent will react with water to produce lather. So that is one of the ways to detect if there is a detergent in milk. Then you have detection of starch. Okay, this is something which can be done very very easily. Starch in milk and milk products. Okay, starch is added to ghee. It could be added to paneer. It could be added to milk also to increase the thickness. Okay, so you can boil 2 to 3 ml of sample of your milk, or if you have ghee, just take the 2 to 3 ml of ghee, and you add 5 ml of water. Then you add some iodine. Okay, iodine, which is there, sometimes we all have it at home as a to gargle. Okay, when we have a bad throat. Okay, you can just add a few drops of this iodine to this milk sample or your milk product. If there is a blue color that forms, okay, then it means that starch is added to the milk. Okay, because pure milk will be as such. Okay, no color change, it will be white in color. Iodine, if there is starch, iodine usually reacts with starch to give a dark blue color. Okay. Similarly, even for ghee, one of the adulterants which are added to ghee is mashed potato and sweet potato. Okay. So if there is a presence of if potato or sweet potato has been added to ghee, you can detect it by the same method. Add a few drops of iodine, and if it becomes blue, then it shows that the starch or potato has been added to the ghee. Okay. In terms of coconut oil, if any other oil has been added to coconut oil, very simple test. Take your coconut oil, put it in a glass, refrigerate for 30 minutes. If the entire do not freeze, just put it in the refrigerator. Uh, Now, usually the coconut oil will solidify. If there is any other oil, then there will be two distinct layers. Okay, so one, if the coconut oil is adulterated, then other oils will remain as a separate layer. Okay. Then you have something called the triorthocrysyl phosphate, okay, which is added to oils and fats. That again is a adulterant. Okay, so take 2 ml of sample of oil, add a little amount of yellow butter. Okay, if there is a red color which forms, then it means that the triorthocrysyl phosphate has been added to the oil or the fat. Detection of sugar solution in honey. Again, take a transparent glass of water, add a drop of honey to the glass. Okay. Pure honey will not disperse in water. Okay. If the drop of honey disperses in water, then it indicates the presence of added sugar. Okay. The other one is take a cotton wick, dip it in pure honey and light with a matchstick. Pure honey will burn. If it is adulterated, the presence of water will not allow the honey to burn. So it will produce a cracking sound. Simple tests, and these are all given in our FSSAI. Okay, like I said, there is a manual. I have just taken out a few of the tests which are common adulterants in common food products, and I have put it up here. Next is detection of chalk powder in sugar or jaggery. Okay, you take again a glass of water, dissolve the sample in the water, whichever it could be sugar or jaggery. If it is mixed with chalk, the adulterant will settle down at the bottom. Okay, if it is jaggery and sugar, it will form a uniform liquid. If there is adulterant in terms of chalk powder, it will settle down at the bottom. Okay. Then you have certain types of dal which is mixed. Then by visual appearance, okay, you can check whether the varieties of dals have been mixed up. Then detection of added color in food grains. Here again, you take the grains and put it in water. Pure food grains, because they cannot, give out the color. So pure food grains will not leave any color. If there is any adulterated food grains, then that color will come into the water. Okay. Next is in ragi. Again, I told you about rhodamine B, which is actually a dye which is not industrial dye. Okay, suppose that has been, there have been cases of this being added to ragi. And how do you determine that? You just take a container or a surface which contains ragi, take a cotton ball which is soaked in water or vegetable oil. Okay. And if the cotton absorbs the color, then it means that rhodamine has been added to this ragi. Okay. Similarly, addition of detection of chalk in common salt. When you mix common salt in water, it should dissolve completely. If there is any other impurities that are present, then it'll either settle down or it'll make the water white. I think this is something which we are aware of. Papaya seeds are mixed with black pepper. Now, how do we detect it? Okay, if there are papaya seeds mixed with black pepper, again add the black pepper to a glass of water. Pure black pepper will settle at the bottom. If there is adulterated black pepper, then the papaya seeds will float on the surface of the water. Okay, and again for synthetic colors which are added, use water, add it to a glass of water. Artificial colors will start descending down into the water, whereas the chili powder will be on the surface of the water. Okay. Cassia bark and cinnamon. Okay, so if you can see here, this is a variety of the cinnamon, and this is cassia. Okay, so usually people would sell cassia as cinnamon. Okay, but cinnamon barks are very thin and it can be rolled. Okay, around a pencil. It also has a very distinct smell. Whereas cassia barks are not, cannot be rolled, and it's slightly more thicker as compared to the cinnamon barks. Okay, then you have lead chromate, same thing, dissolve in water. If you have a color, then it has been adulterated. Otherwise, pure turmeric, that is especially the pure turmeric as a whole turmeric, that will not leave any color. Okay. Another interesting aspect, I think many of you are would be coffee drinkers. I am one for sure. There are some of us, I think, who prefer to have only coffee without chicory. Okay, so there could be addition of chicory to the coffee powder. Okay, so how do you test for that? Take a transparent glass of water, add a teaspoon of your coffee powder. Coffee powder will float over the water, but chicory will start to sink in the water. Okay, so this is a way of detecting chicory in the coffee powder. Okay, then you have also tea. People who love your tea. Okay, so how do you know whether the tea leaves have been, mixed or adulterated? Take a small amount of tea leaves, okay, or tea dust, place it in the center of a filter paper, add water drop by drop to the heap of the tea leaves. If the tea leaf is adulterated, many times colors are added to that or brick powder is added. Okay, then a colored tea, water will dissolve the added color and leave a streak of color in the filter paper. Okay, so if not, if it is pure tea leaves, there won't be any stain on the filter paper. Okay. The last one is detecting iron filings. Yes, iron filings also could be added to tea leaves. Okay, so how do you detect it? Easy. Take a magnet through the tea leaves. Okay, pure tea leaves will not show any iron filings on the magnet. If it is adulterated with iron filings, it will be seen on the magnet. Okay, so these are simple, as you would know, very simple tests, and this is given by FSSAI. Okay, the reason why I have included this, yes, it would be applicable, beneficial for manufacturers to carry out these simple tests. We also have a lot of people who have joined in to understand more about food fraud. So for us also as consumers, I think we can also carry out these simple tests at home. Okay, so overall, if you've seen today, we have covered what are the aspects of food fraud. Okay, what is the impact? What are the challenges that as people in the industry are facing or you could face? And we have gone through various cases of food fraudulent activities. What are the types of food fraud that could happen in terms of mislabeling, concealment, not declaring something, dilution, so many things. Okay, and then also how do we prevent and detect food fraud, and how do we detect adulterants in various food products? We have gone through that also. And the one final thing is, of course, as manufacturers, we do take, we have to take stringent measures to address food fraudulent activities. But in addition to that, the legislation, legal actions are also becoming stringent. Okay, stringent labeling rules are going to be enforced. Already we do have. Okay, and as all of you would know, labeling requirements are becoming stringent, more and more stringent. Fines also, in terms of when in case of any fraudulent activities, legal action can be taken, fines can be put on your manufacturing industries. Okay, so consumer protection legislation can also offer a protection against food fraud. So you have the India's Consumer Protection Act of 1986, and there are provisions for protecting consumers against unfair trade practices, and these are defined as state practices which, for the purpose of promoting the sale, use, or supply of any food goods, including food, or for the provision of any service, adopts any unfair method or unfair or deceptive practice, it can be subject to legal action. Okay, so this is our thing, and I would like to sign off saying that yes, as people of science, as consumers, it is our responsibility to consciously fight food fraud and adulteration. So I thank everyone for being a part of this webinar. And yes, Saurabh,
Yeah,
I
ma'am.
think we can hand it over.
Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am. Really a wonderful and insightful session. So really thank you all. And participants have unmuted you. You can unmute yourself now, and please, the session is open for asking questions. So any questions, please unmute yourself one by one. You can even post the questions in the chat.
It's Sangeeta here. A very
Yes.
informative session, ma'am, and thank you
Thank
for taking us through. And then the elaborate examples are very insightful. Uh, One of the foremost query being, we are a manufacturer, but
you.
when we go to the FASAI portal, we are not able to see the food fraud cases. It is not in one area. That means either we hear it through the newspapers, or it is, what comes out as a news. And is there a portal or a place in the FASAI, or some kind of updated, some kind of, you know, I would say, as arrangement made, just like we see in EFSA, right? When you go to FDA or you go to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
European portal, it's very easily available. So in
Mhm.
India, where is that one place that we can see the food fraud cases? To be very precise as a
Not
question.
not yet, Sangeeta. I think we're still getting there. Okay. So this is something which I think FSSAI is also working on. Okay. So not yet. We have not yet reached that point, but I'm sure there are plans in place to come up with these declaring it on the portal, be it recalls. This is not only with respect to food fraud, even for recalls also. If you go to, like you mentioned, FDA or FSA, you have all these alerts which are given there. Okay, so not yet with respect to FSSAI, but I'm sure they're working on it, and we'll get it soon. Okay, so as of now, we have to, gather the information from the other news and other channels which are available. But we
Yeah.
need to also check the authenticity, because we have to check the reliability and the authenticity of the news before we take any action.
I have a second question as well,
Yeah,
if time permits.
yeah.
See, the street food vendors that we have in India, right? And
Mhm,
of course,
mhm,
the sweet houses that we have, we see a lot of adulteration. So
mhm.
I'm not sure. Recently, we have seen cases in Hyderabad where restaurants
Correct.
are being kind of, raided to understand what kind of, how practices they have been following in the kitchen. But
Mhm.
whereas for the street food vendors, where can be a lot of adulteration, like example, gobi Manchurian, though it is banned, it is still available in restaurants actually.
Correct, correct.
It's still available. So I think not enough has been done in this area to prevent, or to enforce. I think enforcement is lacking. So that is the area I see. Banned means it should be completely banned, right? But I still see
Absolutely.
restaurants selling gobi Manchurian. Or what kind of checks that FSI is doing? I know it's not the right forum, but maybe if you have more insights from the regulatory perspective, that
Yeah.
would be good if you can share.
Yeah, yeah. So Sangeeta, the thing is, as far as gobi Manchurian is concerned, there is a specific dye, that is a rhodamine B, which is banned. Okay, so of course, all restaurants can continue selling, the gobi Manchurian. Okay, you can all, maybe they're using some approved colors, but in specific, rhodamine B is not allowed for sale. Okay, so what are the approved colors? That is one thing which we need to be aware of. And second, coming to your point of, yes, lot of adulterations, like I told you in the first two slides itself, the amount of fraudulent cases have gone up, tremendously. So of course, FSSAI is doing its part, okay, because they also are bringing, they're trying to bring in street food vendors also under the regulations. They have a separate regulations which addresses controls for street food vendors. But again, I would say it would take some time, okay, because as the other sectors, they are trying to make certain things like hygiene rating, etc., mandatory, and they're also taking in empaneled partners to carry out these audits, etc. So as far as the street food level, it would take some more time. Okay? So I don't know, I hope I've addressed your thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
We have one more question, I think, so from Ms. Shobha. I mean, she's asking turmeric and paper, how do we find out the adulteration?
Yeah, so Shobha, the common adulterants in turmeric is a dye. Okay, it is either methanol yellow or lead chromate. Okay, and when you dissolve turmeric in water, okay, if there is an added dye to the turmeric, then the color will come out. Okay, so automatically there will be a dispersal of the color. Okay, whereas if it is a natural turmeric, okay, you will only see that the turmeric will settle down, or there will be a sediment formed. Okay, the color will not be discharged from the product. Okay, this is for turmeric. And as far as pepper is concerned, the common adulterant here is papaya. When you add a spoonful of pepper to water, if there is papaya seeds, it will float on top. If it is pepper, it will settle down at the bottom.
Uh, Ms. Shobha, you're there. So you have put one more, milk is soapy. So
Oh, I'm
anything you need to ask?
there. Thanks, Saurabh. Ramya, I would like to know, even oven milk is so soapy sometimes, I don't know if there's a lot of adulteration there, but then how do we go about this? Because I'm a little scared. Before we used to get a lot of cream, but then now it is so soapy.
Okay. So is it, if it's like, forming a lather as such, of course, when any of the milk will have a little bit of, a foam. But if it's causing a very kind of sticky, soapy feeling, then there is a chance of adulterant being added, particularly a detergent. Okay. But if it is any other milk will have a foam. Okay. There will be a small foamy layer on top. Okay, so we need to check whether it's like a lather or is it just a foam, a small layer of foam that is being there.
And that is what I'm asking. If the government is putting down the rules, I think the rules have to be first laid out in the government itself before they reach out to the outsiders, I felt.
Yes.
That is
Yes,
why
yes.
I asked. Thanks so much. And
Thank you.
it was a very enlightening program. And thank you so much, Ramya, for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubha. Thanks for joining.